Good morning, dear listeners. Today we will study two major poems of Robert Frost, Dust of Snow and Fire and Ice. Let me introduce first Robert Frost, who was born in 1874, died in 1963. He was a great American poet. He is the single poet in American history who has been awarded 4 times Pulitzer Prizes. Robert Frost is also known as the nature poet in American literature. As we know very well that in English literature, when we talk about William Wordsworth is known as nature poet in English literature, and in Hindi literature we know very well Sumitra Nandan Pant. Sumitra Nandan Pant is known as the nature poet in Hindi literature. Here Robert Frost, in both the poems, talks about the way of life, the way of thinking. First, we will talk about Dust of Snow. Dust of Snow is a kind of poem in which the poet talks about his innate nature of believing in things. It means his positive, strong attitude that is always with him. He is a very confident person, doesn't believe in any negativity. He is a great optimistic poet, and that's why he has commented, the way a crow shook down on me. It means there was a crow when he was going through a way, and just beside the way there was a hemlock tree. Hemlock tree is a kind of poisonous tree. It is also known as inauspicious thing. In literature, many books it has been referred. We have found that hemlock juice also in the very famous play of William Shakespeare, Hamlet. It was the father of Prince Hamlet, and who was there? King Hamlet. In his ear, the poisonous juice of hemlock tree was poured, and then he died. So hemlock tree is known as a poisonous tree. So it is known as inauspicious thing. So he just comments on the lines, the way that it means the manner of that crow. Crow is itself that you can find it out that it is also known as inauspicious creature, as it has been mentioned many times in literature, English literature especially. And shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, and a particle of dust just fell on him. And who was responsible? The crow was responsible. It might have shaken the branch, it might have shaken its feathers somewhere, from somewhere. It means the center was the tree, and it just fell on the shoulder of the, or any part, or the upper part of the body of the poet. And that's why the poet started thinking about it, that what happened, what had just happened. So he started thinking about it, and then again in the second stanza he says that has given my heart a change of mood. And this opportunity, for other people it might have negative meaning, it might have negative effect, but for me it has the positive effect, because I am a great optimistic poet. I believe in positivity. I just see on the brighter side of my life. So I find it that it is the clear opportunity to decode the meaning. And as I have decoded the meaning, and the meaning is that it has saved some part of a day I had saved. It means the poet's day, which was going very boring, according to the poet. He was moving here and there, and meanwhile he just encountered this incident where from a hemlock tree a crow was there and who shook its feathers or branches. So particle of snow that fell on him, and he felt like that it had just made his day, and his day became meaningful because the activity of the crow and what hemlock tree, and that's why he has saved his day. He has successfully saved his day. He has successfully lived the day beautifully, and that's why he wants to say that his day is now meaningful, his day is now successful, because the crow and hemlock tree both have made his day great. Otherwise the day was going very boring and he had not any purpose whole the day, but he found special meaning when crow shook its feathers or branches and particle of snow fell on him. So it is just the poem Dust of Snow brings the note of positivity, the positive attitude of the poet Robert Frost, and he admits, he accepts that life depends on quality of our thoughts, our thinking. As we think, so we become. And that's why he says that although it is crow, it is hemlock tree, but the poet has never noticed all these things. The poet has only noticed that these things, the activity of the crow, it has just brought a purpose of life for him. He never thought of the negativity of the crow or hemlock tree. And here the poem ends. If we talk about the rhyme scheme of the poem, we find that rhyme scheme of the poem, the both stanzas that we find A B A B C D C D. So 8 lines are there in the poem, and the second poem, Fire and Ice, we find here 2 stanzas, first 4 lines and second 5 lines. Here in this poem, Fire and Ice, the poet talks about 2 ideas, 2 possibilities. 2 groups are there in this world. The people who believe that the world will have an end, and 2 reasons will be there, foremost reasons, first fire and second ice. But in this poem, fire symbolizes desire and ice symbolizes hatred. When the poet says that some say the world will end in a fire, and some say in ice. From what I have tested of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Favor fire, you find the figure of speech alliteration, same sound is being repeated. The first stanza, 4th line, favor fire. Rhyming lines that you can find it out. So he says, but I favor the people who give the opinion that desire will be the reason. Immanent, that you can find that, not immanent we cannot say, we can say that the luxurious style of the human beings, a lot of desires of the human beings will be the reason for the destruction of the world. It means fire will be the reason for the destruction of the world, and the poet favors it. And the second stanza we find that, but if it had to perish twice, it means that if it will have, the world will have end 2 times. So both the times, what the poet wants to say here, that I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. It means ice will never be sufficient. It will be only fire, desire will be the reason. If 2 times destruction will be there, then also fire will be the reason, enough reason to have the destruction 2 times. That's why the poet hates to this argument. He says that ice would not be sufficient. It will be fire which will be clearly sufficient. If there will be 2 times destruction of the world, then fire is the only reason that will be clearly sufficient, and ice will never be sufficient. This is what that the poet clarifies here. Also in this stanza we find both the stanza we find the rhyme scheme AB AA BC BCB. So you can find the rhyme scheme also very clearly, and so I have tried my best to summarize both the poems very clearly. The first poem, the poet talks about dust of snow. The poet talks about strong positivity, his strong attitude, his positive thinking, great optimistic thought, that if you have quality of thoughts, you have no problem in life, whether there are negative symbols, negative things, like as in the poem it has been described that hemlock tree and crow both are inauspicious things, negative things, but the poet has taken it very positively, and the poet says that his day was going to be wasted, but crow has made the day successful, and hemlock tree he has also mentioned. So the life depends on quality of our thoughts very clearly. And second poem, the fire and ice, the poet talks about 2 possibilities of the world, to have an end of the world, and 2 possibilities, first fire and then ice, but the poet favors very clearly fire, that he says that, and fire symbolizes desires and ice symbolizes hatred, and the poet finds himself, the poet favors fire, the desire will be the reason for the world to have an end. Thanks a lot for listening and watching. Thanks a lot, and please support me and give your opinion in comment section. Thanks a lot.